Hi everyone, it's Joy here today, and I'm excited to share with you 4 cards using products from the new St. Patty's Day release. So I am using the Shamrock Stamp and Stencil combo, the Shamrocks Little Bits die, the Mini Strips St. Patrick's Day and the Mini Strips die, the Petite Scallop Rectangle Stackables, Gold Glitter Cardstock, Vellum, Sugar Cube, Lime Zest, Peapod, and Toffee cardstock. I'm going to use VersaMark, Oreo, Lime Zest, and Peapod ink, foam sticky strips and circles, the blender brush, my gold embossing powder, anti-static tool, and Bits and Pieces gold drip drops. Now in my Misty, I have taken out the foam insert because I'm going to be using this background stamp. This is the Shamrock stamp from the Shamrock Stamp and Stencil combo. And I have a piece of Toffee cardstock trimmed to an A2 size piece. I'm adding a little bit of my tape runner to the back of my Misty. I want to hold this piece of cardstock in place because it's a full background stamp. I cannot use a magnet, so I'm just adding that down. I'm using the anti-static powder tool, getting that nice and powdered up because I don't want any little pieces of gold embossing powder where they are not supposed to be. I'm using VersaMark ink to ink up my stamp. Again, I'm using gold embossing powder on the Toffee cardstock, which looks really beautiful together. So I'm going to stamp that and then sprinkle on the gold embossing powder. I'm going to do this twice. There is 4 cards. I'm doing 2 with gold embossing powder and 2 with Oreo ink for the stems. So now I'm going to heat that until it's nice and melted. You know that the embossing powder is melted because it becomes shiny. Once it becomes shiny, move on to the next spot. Now here I am stamping my next 2 pieces of Toffee cardstock with Oreo ink. I'm not doing any embossing on this. Now that that's done, we are going to do the stenciling. So on this grid paper here, there is a spot to put your A2 size card panel. Then there's a spot to put your stencils, and you can see there's a nice little grid that lines everything up. There's 2 stencils that come with this. You can start with either one. You know that it's in the right position because it lines up with the stems that you just stamped. And also the bottom left corner has the Tailored Expressions logo at the bottom. Now I am using 2 inks for this. I'm going to use Lime Zest and Peapod ink. So this was Lime Zest. That was a little bit lighter. Now I'm coming in with the Peapod ink. When you put the stencil on, there's also some little guide marks that look like the stems, and they will line up with the stems that you stamped underneath it. And then also in the openings where the stems are, you can tell that everything is lined up. So I'm inking that second stencil up with Peapod ink, and now you've got 2 different colors with that gold embossing. I'm going to do that same thing for both the gold and the black inked up cardstocks. So here's the black one. I just want to show you what this looked like. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing Lime Zest and Peapod ink, lining everything up with the guidelines on the stencil, the little guideline stems for both stencils, and then making sure in my openings that the little stems line up inside each one of these shamrocks, and then you know everything is perfect. Now that's done. That turned out so pretty. Now I am using the Little Bits Shamrocks, and I'm going to die cut a ton of these from the gold glitter cardstock, the Peapod, and the Lime Zest cardstock because I'm going to be using a ton of these little shamrocks. So as you can see, they die cut beautifully, and there are 3 different sizes. You have a large, a medium, and a small. And doesn't that look so pretty with that gold glitter cardstock? So I'm going to pop those out and finish die cutting again from the Lime Zest and Peapod. Now in my Misty, I am placing a piece of Sugar Cube cardstock, and I'm prepping that with the anti-static powder tool. I'm going to do some heat embossing for the sentiments. I am using the Mini Strips St. Patrick's Day, and you can see on the sides there are little squares, and those are the guidelines to line up the coordinating die, which is the Mini Strips die. I'm inking that up with VersaMark ink, coming in with the gold embossing powder, sprinkling that on. Then I will use my heat tool to heat that through until it's nice and melted, and then I will use the coordinating die. Again, those little squares on the side match up with the squares on the side of the die cut, so you know you get this great straight cut for each one of those sentiments. I'm going to tape that down with some low-tack tape. I'm using Scotch removable tape, and I'm going to run that through my die cut machine once I have everything lined up, and we'll get a nice, good, straight cut. Now that that's done, we've got all of these great little sentiments. Now, using this vellum, I'm going to die cut using the Petite Scallop rectangle stackables. I'm die cutting a piece of that. I actually do end up die cutting that a little bit smaller later, and I will show you that. Then I have one of those backgrounds that we stamped and stenciled. This is the gold embossed one. I trimmed it down 1/8 of an inch on all sides. I am centering this scallop die right in the middle there. I'm going to run that through the die cut machine, and now we have 2 pieces to go together. That vellum was the same size as that centerpiece. I am picking one more die that's 1 smaller, running that through. We have the sentiment here that says, "To my lucky charm." I adhered that down, and then we have the little shamrocks. I adhered a gold glitter one to a Peapod one. I'm going to add some adhesive behind the sentiment and the shamrock, and I'm going to center that in that card panel. I'm also going to be adding some foam sticky strips behind that panel to pop it up. I'm adhering the outside frame to a white A2 size card base, and here is that center panel. I'm popping that up. And then I'm just going to add a few of the gold drip drops for a little bit of finishing touches on this card. And that one is super, super cute. Okay, for the next card, I have die cut 2 pieces using the Petite Scalloped rectangle stackables, one from the gold glitter cardstock and one from the stamped and stenciled background. The gold glitter is slightly larger than the stamped and stenciled background. I added foam sticky strips behind the sentiment. I adhered together 3 of those shamrocks for that big one. Then I'm going to add a few smaller ones, and then that card is complete. For the next card, I have die cut a large Petite Scallop rectangle. I am adding the sentiment towards the bottom in the center with some foam sticky strips. And I'm also adding some of these shamrocks, a large one, 2 smaller ones that are gold, Peapod, and lime zest. I'm going to finish that with some of the gold drip drops. For the final card, I have die cut a small scalloped, a Petite Scallop rectangle, and I'm adhering 3 large shamrocks, one in the center with gold and Peapod cardstock, and the outer ones are lime zest. I also end up adding 2 medium-sized shamrocks to those larger ones for more dimension, and then adhering that sentiment that says "Shake your shamrock." Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching. You can find all of these products at the Tailored Expressions web store at tailoredexpressions.com.